Doctors at Providence VA Medical Center called her slow. They said Nash Jenkins spent too much time holding hands and not enough time pushing meds. They called her soft. But on a rainy Tuesday in November, the doors of the ER burst open, and the hospital changed forever. A man was wheeled in, blooded, beaten, and carrying a secret that reached the highest levels of the Pentagon. The chief of surgery couldn't save him. The expensive machines couldn't save him. But when the room went silent, that dying Navy SEAL didn't look at the doctors. He grabbed Nash's wrist, pulled her close, and whispered 7 words that would bring a chaotic emergency room to a dead halt. They thought she was just a nurse. They were dead wrong. If you stood in the center of the emergency department at Providence Medical Center long enough, the noise stopped sounding like chaos and started sounding like a rhythm. It was a grim industrial music, the rhythmic hiss-thump of ventilators, the sharp staccato of heart monitors, the squeak of rubber soles on linoleum, and the constant, low-frequency hum of human misery. Nash Jenkins knew the rhythm better than she knew the sound of her own voice. At 42, she was the oldest floor nurse on the night shift. She wasn't the fastest. That was 24-year-old Jessica, who could insert an IV catheter in a dehydrated junkie in under 10 seconds. She wasn't the smartest. That was supposed to be Dr. Richard Owen, the new attending physician who wore his stethoscope like a chain of office and treated nurses like furniture that occasionally talked back. Nash was just there. She was the one who cleaned the vomit off the shoes of the homeless vet in bed 4. She was the one who sat with Mrs. Gable specifically to hold her hand while the anesthesia wore off, just because Mrs. Gable was terrified of waking up alone. "Jenkins, move it!" Dr. Owen barked, snapping his fingers near her face. "Bed 6 needs a catheter. Stop socializing." Nash wasn't socializing. She was checking the pupils of a patient who had come in for a migraine, but whose speech had just started slurring. "Dr. Owen, Mr. Henderson's left pupil is sluggish. I think we need a CT scan immediately. Possible bleed." Owen didn't even look up from his iPad. "He's a frequent flyer, Nash. He's here for the dilaudid. Catheter. Now." Nash didn't move. She held her ground, her voice soft but firm. "Doctor, look at him." Owen groaned, rolling his eyes as he marched over, shining his penlight into Mr. Henderson's eyes. He paused. The annoyance vanished from his face, replaced by the sharp, electric focus of panic. "Blow! Let's go! Get him to CT! Stroke protocol!" As the team rushed Mr. Henderson away, Owen brushed past Nash. He didn't say "good catch." He didn't say "thank you." He just said, "Try to keep up, Jenkins." Nash didn't mind. She wasn't there for the glory. She was there because, 20 years ago, her brother had died in a hospital bed, while the nurses were too busy filling out paperwork to notice he'd stopped breathing. She had made a vow then. "Not on my watch." The night wore on, heavy and wet. Outside, a torrential downpour lashed against the ambulance bay doors. It was a full moon night, even if the clouds hid the moon, the kind of night that brought out the car crashes, the bar fights, and the overdoses. At 02 Rotter's hours, the red phone at the triage desk rang. The bat phone. It was the direct line from EMS dispatch. Jessica picked it up, her face paling as she listened. She hung up and looked at the team. "We have an inbound, 5 minutes out. Male, approx 30 years old. Multiple GSWs, gunshot wounds, blunt force trauma, found dumped on the side of I-95. "Police involved?" Owen asked, snapping on fresh gloves. "No ID on the Vic," Jessica said. "Paramedics say he's barely hanging on. BP is 60/40. He's crashing." The bay doors hissed open, letting in a gust of freezing rain and the roar of a diesel engine. 2 paramedics rushed the stretcher in, their faces glistening with sweat and rain. The man on the gurney was a wreck. His clothes were shredded, dark tactical pants and a black t-shirt soaked through with blood. His face was a mask of bruising, one eye swollen shut. "Trauma 1, let's go," Owen shouted, taking command. "Get me 2 large-bore IVs. Type and cross 4 units of O-neg. Someone cut his clothes off." Nash moved to the patient's left side. As she reached for his arm to find a vein, she paused. Despite the chaos, despite the blood loss that should have rendered him unconscious, the man's remaining good eye snapped open. It wasn't the glassy, confused stare of a trauma victim. It was a laser. Blue, piercing, and terrifyingly alert. He locked eyes with her. "Sir, can you hear me?" Nash asked, her voice calm amidst the shouting. "My name is Nash. We're going to help you." The man didn't look at Owen. He didn't look at the frantic paramedics. He stared only at Nash. His hand, covered in dried mud and blood, shot out and gripped her scrub top. His grip was iron strong, shocking for a man who had lost half his blood volume. "Nash," he rasped. It wasn't a question. It was a verification. "I'm here," she said, placing her hand over his. "Let go, honey. We need to work." "Don't! Let them." He coughed, blood spattering his lips. "Don't let them catalogue me." "What?" Owen shouted from the foot of the bed. "What is he babbling about? Jenkins, get that line in. He's in V-fib." "He's not in V-fib. Look at the monitor," Nash yelled back, breaking character. The monitor showed a jagged, rapid tachycardia, but a steady rhythm. "He's trying to tell us something." The man pulled Nash down. The movement was slight, but the intent was massive. He needed her ear. "Jenkins, get away from his face," Owen warned. Nash ignored the doctor. She leaned in, her ear inches from the man's bloodied mouth. "Orion," he whispered. The word carried a weight that chilled her blood. 7. Actual. Do not scan my shoulder. Then his grip went slack. His eye rolled back. The monitor screamed a flat-line warning. "Code blue!" Owen yelled. "Charging paddles! Clear!" As the team descended into the violent choreography of resuscitation, Nash stepped back, her heart hammering against her ribs. She looked at the man's shoulder, the left one, where his shirt had been cut away. Underneath the blood and grime, there was no tattoo. There was no scar. But as the overhead lights hit the skin at a certain angle, she saw it. A faint, almost invisible square of discoloration. A patch, or something under the skin. "Do not scan my shoulder." "We've got a rhythm," Owen announced, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Sinus tach. He's back. Let's get him to the scanner. I want a full pan scan. Head, chest, abdomen, pelvis." "No," Nash said. The word was quiet, but it cut through the room. Owen froze. "Excuse me?" He said, "No scans," Nash said, stepping between the gurney and the door. "He is a John Doe with multiple gunshot wounds and a traumatic brain injury," Owen shouted, his face turning red. "He doesn't get a vote. He could have internal bleeding, a subdural hematoma. Jenkins, move or you're fired." "He was lucid," Nash insisted, her hands shaking but her feet planted. "He gave me a direct instruction. If you put him in that MRI or CT, something bad is going to happen. I feel it." "You feel it?" Owen laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Security! Get Nurse Jenkins out of here!" 2 burly security guards, Mike and Dave, men Nash shared coffee with every night, stepped forward, looking apologetic. "Come on, Nash," Mike said gently. "Don't make us do this." Nash looked at the patient. He was unconscious now, intubated, helpless. Orion. 7. Actual. It sounded military. It sounded like something that didn't belong in a civilian hospital in Providence. If she moved, they would scan him. If he had metal in him, shrapnel or something else, an MRI could rip it out of his body and kill him. If it was a tracker, Scanning it might trigger something else. "I'm not moving," Nash said. Owen grabbed the gurney himself. "Push him past her." As the metal rail of the gurney slammed into her hip, pushing her aside, Nash saw something fall from the pocket of the man's shredded pants. It clattered to the floor, unnoticed by everyone else. She bent down and scooped it up. It was a coin, heavy, bronze and old. On one side was a skull, on the other a Latin phrase, mors ab alto, death from above. Nash knew that motto. Her brother had worn it on a patch. This wasn't just a John Doe. This was a ghost. And if Owen put him in that machine, he wasn't just going to kill the patient. He was going to bring a war to their doorstep. Nash ran for the elevator. She had to make a call. Not to the police, but to the one number her brother had told her to use, only if the world was ending. Nash's hands were trembling so hard she could barely punch the numbers into her cell phone. She was standing in the dank, concrete stairwell of the East Wing, the only place where the hospital Wi-Fi didn't reach, and cell service was spotty at best. She fished a small, battered notebook from her scrub pocket. It was old, cheap leather peeling at the corners. It had belonged to her brother, Mark. Before he deployed to Afghanistan for the last time 8 years ago, he had written a single number on the back page. "If I don't come back," Mark had told her, holding her shoulders, "and if you ever see a guy who looks like he's been through hell and is carrying a coin like mine, you call this number. You don't call 911. You don't call the cops. You call this." Nash had thought he was being dramatic. Mark was a storyteller. But holding that heavy bronze coin with the skull on it, feeling the cold metal bite into her palm, she knew this wasn't a story. She dialed. 1 ring, 2 rings. Then, a click. "This line is restricted," a voice said. It wasn't a recording. It was a man, his tone devoid of any warmth, sharp as broken glass. "Identify." "My name is Nash Jenkins," she stammered, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm a nurse at Providence Medical Center in Rhode Island. I have a patient. He gave me a message." "Mum, hang up immediately or federal agents will be dispatched to your location," the voice said, bored. "He said Orion 7 actual," Nash shouted into the phone, her voice echoing off the concrete walls. The silence on the other end was instant and absolute. It lasted for 5 agonizing seconds. When the voice returned, the boredom was gone. It was replaced by a terrifying intensity. "Repeat that." "Orion 7 actual," Nash whispered. And he said not to scan his shoulder. "Listen to me very carefully, Miss Jenkins," the voice said. "Is the patient alive?" "Barely. He's in the ER. The attending physician, Dr. Owen, is taking him to the CT scanner right now. I tried to stop him, but—" "Stop him," the voice commanded. It wasn't a request. "You have to stop that scan. If that machine activates, the magnetic resonance will trigger a fail-safe in the asset's subdermal implant. It won't just kill him, Nash. It will detonate a thermal charge. It will kill everyone in that room." Nash gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "A bomb? Inside him?" "It's data protection," the man said. "We are scrambling a team from Groton. We are 20 minutes out. Do not let them scan him. Do not let anyone leave that hospital, and trust no one. If anyone asks about the patient, you tell them nothing." "Who are you?" Nash asked. "Call me Rourke," he said. "Run, Nash." The line went dead. Nash didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She burst out of the stairwell and sprinted down the hallway, her rubber clogs squeaking violently on the polished floor. She ran past the nurse's station. Jessica looked up, startled. "Nash, Owen is looking for you. He's going to write you up." Nash ignored her. She banked left. heading toward the radiology wing. The scanning in progress light above the CT room door was not lit yet, thank God. She burst through the double doors. The room was cool and dimly lit. The massive donut-shaped CT scanner hummed menacingly in the center. Dr. Owen was in the control booth behind the leaded glass, typing on the console. 2 radiology techs were positioning the unconscious Seal on the sliding table. They were strapping his head down. "Stop!" Nash screamed, slamming her hand against the glass partition of the control booth. Owen looked up, his face purple with rage. "Jenkins, I told security to remove you. You are done. You are fired." "Don't push that button," Nash yelled, ignoring the threat. "Dr. Owen, you cannot turn that machine on." Owen sneered and pressed the intercom button. "Ignore her," he told the techs. "Commence the scan. Head and neck first." The table began to slide. The hum of the machine pitched up, a rising whine of immense power. Nash looked at the man on the table. He was helpless. "It will kill everyone in that room." She couldn't reason with Owen. She couldn't fight the security guards who were surely moments away. She had to be a nurse. She had to know how the equipment worked. She scanned the room. There. On the wall, near the heavy lead-lined door, was a large red button encased in a plastic box. Emergency power cutoff. Every hospital had them. They were designed to kill the magnets in an MRI or cut power in a CT suite in case of an electrical fire or if a patient was pinned. Using it was a catastrophic event. It would damage the multi-million-dollar machine. It would take radiology offline for days. Nash didn't flinch. She grabbed a heavy metal IV pole standing in the hallway, swung it like a baseball bat, and smashed the plastic casing. Crack! She slammed her palm onto the red button. The hum died instantly. The lights in the room flickered and went out, replaced by the dim, eerie glow of red emergency strobes. The sliding table jerked to a halt. Silence crashed into the room. Owen came storming out of the control booth, veins bulging in his neck. "What have you done? Do you have any idea what you've just done? That is a $3 million piece of equipment." Nash dropped the IV pole. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving. She walked past the screaming doctor, past the stunned techs, and placed her hand on the Seal's neck. A pulse. Weak, thready. But there. "I just saved your life, Doctor," she said, her voice shaking but defiant. "And yours. And mine." The double doors swung open behind them, but it wasn't security. Nash turned, expecting Mike or Dave. Instead, a man in a charcoal grey suit stood there. He was perfectly groomed, wearing rimless glasses and holding a clipboard. He looked like a hospital administrator, but his shoes were too expensive, and his eyes were too dead. Behind him stood 2 men who were definitely not administrators. They wore black windbreakers and had earpieces coiling down their necks. "Dr. Owen?" the man in the suit asked, his voice smooth as oil. Owen straightened his lab coat, trying to regain his dignity. "Yes? Who are you?" "This nurse just destroyed my scanner." The man in the suit smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm Mr. Kincaid, from the Department of Defense. We're here to take over the care of your John Doe." Nash felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Rourke had said, "Trust no one." Rourke had said they were 20 minutes out. It had only been 5. These weren't the good guys. The silence in the radiology suite was heavier than lead. The red emergency lights pulsed, casting long, shifting shadows across the face of the unconscious man on the table. Mr. Kincaid stepped into the room, stepping over the broken plastic of the emergency shutoff. He looked at the disabled machine, then at Nash, then at Owen. "A malfunction?" Kincaid asked, tilting his head. "Sabotage!" Owen shouted, pointing a trembling finger at Nash. "This nurse has gone psychotic. She claims the patient has a bomb in his shoulder or some nonsense. I want her arrested." Kincaid's eyes snapped to Nash. For a microsecond, the mask slipped. Nash saw a flash of predatory interest. "Is that so?" Kincaid said softly. He walked closer to Nash, invading her personal space. He smelled of peppermint and gun oil. "A bomb in his shoulder? Where did you hear that, Miss Jenkins?" Nash's mind raced. If she admitted the patient spoke to her, they would kill the patient to keep him quiet. If she admitted she called Rourke, they would kill her. She forced herself to look dumb. She forced her posture to slump, adopting the persona Owen always expected of her. The tired, middle-aged, over-emotional nurse. I didn't say bomb," Nash stammered, wringing her hands. "I said shrapnel. My brother was in the army. He had shrapnel. I was afraid the magnet would rip it out." Kincaid studied her. He looked for the lie. Nash held her breath, thinking of the poker games she used to play with her father. Don't blink. Look worried. Not guilty. "Shrapnel," Kincaid repeated. He chuckled dryly. "Commendable caution, nurse, but misplaced. This is a CT scanner, not an MRI. It uses X-rays, not magnets. Metal won't move." Nash feigned realization. Oh God. I got confused. I just panicked." Owen groaned. "She's incompetent. I told you." Kincaid seemed to buy it. He lost interest in her and turned to his two muscle-bound associates. "Load the patient up. We have a medical transport waiting in the bay." "Now wait a minute," Owen interjected, his ego finally overriding his fear. "This patient is critical. He has unstable vitals. You can't just move him without stabilization. I haven't even signed the discharge papers." Kincaid turned to Owen. "Doctor, this is a matter of national security. The paperwork will follow." He nodded to his men. "Grab him." The two men moved toward the gurney. One of them reached into his jacket. Nash saw the handle of a suppressed pistol tucked into a shoulder holster. They weren't taking him to a hospital. They were taking him to a hole in the ground. Nash looked at the patient. Orion. Cole. Whatever his name was. He had fought to stay alive to deliver a message. He had trusted her. She couldn't let them take him. "Wait," Nash blurted out. Everyone looked at her. He needs his meds," Nash said, her voice trembling. "He's on a drip. Epinephrine and fentanyl. If you disconnect him now without tapering, his heart will stop in the elevator. You want him alive, right?" Kincaid paused. "Of course we want him alive." "Then let me package him for transport," Nash pleaded. "Give me 2 minutes to switch him to portable tanks and stabilize the lines. Please. If he dies in your van, it's on you." Kincaid looked at his watch. 2 minutes. Make it fast." "I need to go to the trauma supply closet next door," Nash said. "The portable monitors are there." "Go," Kincaid said, waving a hand dismissively. "Davis, go with her." One of the thugs, Davis, grunted and followed Nash out of the room. Nash walked into the hallway, her legs feeling like jelly. Davis followed 2 steps behind, close enough to grab her ponytail. She reached the supply closet door. "I need 2 hands to carry the monitor," she said, looking back at him. "Can you hold the door?" Davis rolled his eyes. He leaned against the doorframe, propping it open with his foot. "Hurry up, lady." Nash stepped into the cramped closet, filled with bandages, IV fluids, and equipment. She grabbed a portable monitor. It was heavy. She also grabbed something else. On the bottom shelf, sitting in a bucket of cleaning supplies, was a spray bottle of industrial-grade disinfectant, high-concentration alcohol and ammonia. And next to it, a disposable lighter used for shrinking heat-wrap tubing. She didn't have a weapon, but she had chemistry. "What's taking so long?" Davis growled, stepping into the closet. Untangling the cords, Nash said. As Davis stepped fully inside, Nash spun around. She sprayed the disinfectant directly into his eyes. "Ah!" Davis screamed, clutching his face, the harsh chemicals blinding him instantly. Nash didn't stop. She kicked him in the shin as hard as she could, then shoved his stumbling bulk backward. He tripped over a box of saline bags and crashed into the metal shelving unit. Nash bolted out of the closet, slammed the door, and jammed the handle with the IV pole she had carried from the hallway earlier, sliding it through the handle loop and wedging it against the doorframe. Davis was pounding on the door from the inside, screaming threats that would have made a sailor blush. Nash ran back to the CT room. She burst in. Kincaid and the other guard were looking at the door, confused by the noise. Owen was checking the patient's pupils. "Where is Davis?" Kincaid asked, his hand moving to his jacket. "He's getting the stretcher," Nash lied, breathless. She moved to the gurney. "Dr. Owen, help me with the transfer board. Now!" Something in Nash's voice, the absolute command, the nurse voice that brooks no argument, made Owen obey on instinct. He grabbed the sheet. "On 3, 1, 2, 3. They slid the heavy seal from the CT table onto a wheeled gurney. "Okay, let's go," Kincaid said, stepping forward. "My men will take it from here." "No!" Nash shouted. She released the brake on the gurney and shoved it with all her might. The gurney slammed into Kincaid, catching him in the stomach. He doubled over, wheezing. "Run!" Nash screamed at the confused Owen. "They have guns!" The mention of guns broke Owen's brain. He froze. Nash didn't wait for him. She pushed the gurney through the back exit of the radiology suite, the doors bursting open into the service corridor. "Stop her!" Kincaid wheezed behind her. Nash ran. She was 42, she had bad knees, and she was pushing 200 pounds of dead weight. But she ran like an Olympian. She turned a corner, the wheels of the gurney screeching. She knew this hospital. She knew every inch of it. The main elevators would be watched. The exits would be blocked. She needed to vanish. She headed for the one place nobody wanted to go. The laundry chute was too small. The kitchen was too crowded. She headed for the morgue elevator. It was a dedicated service lift used only to take bodies to the basement pathology lab. It required a key card. Nash swiped her badge. Beep. Green light. The doors slid open. She shoved the gurney in. Pop, pop. 2 bullets chipped the drywall inches from her head. Nash screamed and dove into the elevator, slamming her fist on the close door button. Through the narrowing gap, she saw the second guard, gun raised, sprinting toward her. The doors clanged shut. The elevator lurched downward. Nash slumped against the metal wall, sliding down to the floor next to the unconscious SEAL. She was hyperventilating. She checked the patient. He was still breathing, though his rhythm was erratic. Suddenly, his hand shot out again. He gripped her ankle. Nash jumped. "You're awake?" The SEAL's eyes fluttered open. The blue was hazy, drug-addled, but the intensity was returning. "Did they scan me?" he rasped. "No," Nash panted. "I broke the machine. We're in the morgue elevator." A grim smile touched his bloody lips. "Good girl." He tried to sit up, but groaned and fell back. "Listen. In my boot. Right boot." Nash reached down to his muddy tactical boot. She felt something hard in the lining. She pulled out a small, black drive. It looked like a USB, but heavier. "The evidence," he whispered. "Kincaid, he's a traitor. He sold the team. He sold the intel." "We need to get this to the police," Nash said. "No police," he coughed. "Police abort. You need to get me to the roof." "The roof? Why?" "Helicopter," he said. "Orion 7 is coming, but they can't land if the beacon isn't lit." "What beacon?" "The extraction beacon," he said, his voice fading. "I don't have it. I lost it in the crash." Nash looked at the man. He was dying. He was hunted. and he needed a miracle. "We don't have a beacon," Nash said softly. The elevator dinged. They were in the basement. The doors opened to the cold, sterile smell of formaldehyde. "Then we make one," Nash said, a strange calm settling over her. She looked at the oxygen tanks on the gurney. She looked at the road flares in the emergency kit on the wall of the basement corridor. She was Nash Jenkins. She fixed things. And tonight, she was going to fix a landing zone. "Hold on, soldier," she whispered, pushing the gurney into the darkness of the morgue. "We're going to the roof." The basement of Providence Medical Center was a labyrinth of beige hallways, flickering fluorescent lights, and the overwhelming scent of industrial bleach. It was a place for the dead and the discarded, broken wheelchairs, bags of hazardous waste, and the silence of the morgue. Nash pushed the gurney hard, her rubber soles slipping slightly on the polished concrete. The wheels rattled like gunfire in the empty corridor. "Stop," Cole groaned. His face was a shade of grey that Nash had seen 100 times before. It was the colour of a man whose heart was running on fumes. Nash engaged the brake and leaned over him, checking his pulse. It was thready, skipping beats. "We can't stop. They know we're in the building. They'll sweep floor by floor." "I can't ride," Cole gritted out. "Too much. Target. Need cover." He was right. A gurney was a slow-moving billboard. Nash looked around. They were near the laundry services bay. Giant canvas carts on wheels lined the wall, filled with soiled linens. "Can you walk?" she asked. "If you be my crutch," he said. Nash helped him sit up. He screamed, a guttural sound trapped in his throat as his abdominal wounds shifted. Blood began to seep through the fresh bandages she had hastily applied in the elevator. He was heavy, solid muscle and dead weight. He draped his left arm over her shoulders, and she wrapped her right arm around his waist, gripping his belt. "Okay," Nash whispered. "We move." They hobbled forward, a three-legged race against death. "Why the roof?" Nash asked, trying to keep him conscious. "Why not the street? I have a car." "Kincaid," Cole wheezed, each step a battle. "He has a perimeter team. Snipers. If we step out the front door, pink mist." "Jesus," Nash hissed. "Who is this guy? The CIA?" "Worse," Cole said. "Defense intelligence. But he went rogue. He's selling the Trident list, the names of every deep-cover operative in the Middle East. If he gets away, thousands die." Nash tightened her grip on him. She wasn't just saving a patient anymore. She was holding the line. They reached the service elevators at the far end of the basement. Nash reached for the call button. Click. The lights in the hallway died. Pitch blackness swallowed them instantly. The hum of the ventilation system cut out. The silence that followed was deafening. "They cut the power," Cole whispered. "They're trying to flush us out. Night vision. They'll have the advantage." "Not down here," Nash said, her voice steady in the dark. "I've worked the night shift for 12 years. I know this basement better than my own living room." She didn't need eyes. She knew that 20 paces to the left was the boiler room. 10 paces past that was the tunnel to the annex, the construction zone. "This way," she guided him. They moved through the darkness. Nash felt the change in air pressure before she saw the door. The boiler room. It was hot, loud, and smelled of oil. The emergency lights here were dim orange, casting long, hellish shadows. Suddenly, the door behind them burst open. A beam of white tactical light sliced through the darkness. "Clear left!" a voice shouted. "Move!" Nash urged, dragging Cole. They ducked behind a massive industrial boiler, just as a spray of bullets sparked against the metal, piping above their heads. Ping, ping, ping! Steam hissed violently where the bullets punctured the insulation. "They saw us!" Cole rasped. He reached for his waistband, but he had no gun. He looked at Nash, his eyes apologetic. "Leave me! You can make it!" "Shut up!" Nash snapped. "I'm not leaving you!" She looked around. They were trapped. 2 men were advancing, their boots crunching on the concrete. Nash spotted the fire suppression system on the wall, a heavy red lever labeled Halon Release. It was designed to flood the room with gas to starve a fire of oxygen. It wouldn't kill them, but it would suck the air out of the room and create a dense, freezing fog. "Take a deep breath," Nash whispered to Cole. "Now!" She yanked the lever. Whoosh! A massive roar filled the room as compressed halon gas dumped from the ceiling vents. The temperature plummeted instantly. A thick white fog obliterated visibility. The gunmen started coughing, disoriented by the sudden noise and the blinding fog. "Go, go!" Nash screamed. She dragged Cole through the whiteout, counting her steps. 1, 2, 3, turn right. She found the heavy steel door to the construction annex by touch. She shoved it open, pulled Cole through, and slammed the deadbolt home. They collapsed on the other side, gasping for air. They were in an unfinished concrete hallway, littered with drywall and buckets. "You are..." Cole coughed, a laugh bubbling up with the blood. "One hell of a nurse." "I'm tired of people calling me slow," Nash muttered, wiping soot from her forehead. She looked up. They were at the base of the West Wing renovation project. The internal elevators were dead. The stairs were likely guarded. But through the plastic sheeting covering a hole in the wall, she saw it. The external construction hoist. The Buck hoist. An open-air cage elevator attached to the scaffolding on the outside of the building. It ran on an independent generator. "There," Nash pointed. "That goes to the roof?" Cole asked. "Top floor," Nash said. "From there, we climb." They stumbled toward the plastic sheeting. Nash ripped it open. The wind hit them like a physical blow. It was a nor'easter, rain lashing sideways, freezing cold. The city lights of Providence blurred below them. The hoist waited, a rusty metal cage swaying in the gale. Nash shoved Cole inside and slammed the gate. She hit the green up button. The engine sputtered, then roared to life. The cage jerked and began to rise, leaving the safety of the ground behind. 10 feet. 20 feet. Below them, the door they had just exited kicked open. 3 men spilled out onto the scaffolding. They looked up. "Get down!" Cole shouted, shoving Nash to the metal floor of the cage. Bullets clanged against the bottom of the elevator, punching through the mesh floor. Nash screamed as sparks showered them. The hoist kept rising. 30 feet. 40. They were out of range of the pistols, but they were exposed to the elements. The wind howled, swinging the cage dangerously away from the building. "We need a weapon," Cole said, shivering violently. The cold was killing him faster than the blood loss now. "I have the flares," Nash said, patting her pocket. "And the oxygen." "Save them," Cole said. "You need them for the signal. If we don't light that roof up, the chopper pilots won't see us in this storm. They'll abort." The hoist shuddered and ground to a halt. Nash looked at the control panel. "We stopped. Why did we stop?" She looked up. "We weren't at the top yet. We were at the 8th floor." Cole looked over the edge. "They cut the power to the generator below. We're sitting ducks." They were dangling 80 feet in the air, suspended in a metal cage, with a killer climbing the scaffolding ladder below them. Nash looked at the scaffolding structure. It was a grid of metal poles. "We have to climb," Nash said. "It's 2 floors to the roof." "Nash," Cole said, gripping her hand. "I can't. My legs, I can't feel them anymore." Nash looked at him. The man who had survived war zones, who carried the secrets of the nation, was done. He was too heavy to carry up a vertical ladder. Nash looked at the ladder on the scaffolding. Then she looked at the heavy steel cable suspending their cage. I'm not carrying you, Nash said, her eyes hard. I'm pulling you. She grabbed a coil of heavy extension cord from the floor of the construction hoist. She tied it around Cole's chest, under his arms, making a harness. What are you doing? I'm going up, Nash said. I'm going to override the motor manual brake, or I'm going to pull this cage up myself. Nash, no! She didn't listen. She climbed out of the cage, stepping onto the slick, wet metal tubes of the scaffolding. The wind tried to tear her off. The rain stung her eyes like needles. She looked down. The dark shape of a man was climbing the ladder below, coming for them. She looked up, 20 feet to the roof edge. Nash Jenkins began to climb. Nash's fingers were numb. Her scrubs were soaked through, plastering to her skin. Every muscle in her body screamed in protest. She was a 42-year-old woman who enjoyed gardening and knitting, not scaling a skyscraper in a hurricane. But she thought of her brother, Mark. She thought of the phone call she got when he died. How empty and bureaucratic it felt. We regret to inform you. She wouldn't let Cole become a phone call. She reached the top of the scaffolding. She scrambled over the parapet wall and collapsed onto the gravel roof of the hospital. She was safe. But Cole was still dangling in the cage below. She crawled to the edge. She could see the cable mechanism of the hoist. It was jammed. She couldn't fix it. She grabbed the extension cord she had tied to the winch. It was taut. Cole was dead weight on the other end. "Cole!" she screamed over the wind. "I'm pulling!" She wrapped the cord around a ventilation pipe for leverage. She pulled. Nothing. He was too heavy. Below, a gunshot rang out. Clang! The bullet hit the cage. The killer was close. Nash looked around frantically. She needed power. She needed force. She saw the HVAC chiller unit, a massive industrial fan spinning with tremendous torque. An idea, crazy and desperate, formed in her mind. She ran to the maintenance shed on the roof. The door was locked. She picked up a loose brick and smashed the handle off. She kicked the door in. Inside, tools, belts, grease. She grabbed a heavy-duty ratchet strap. She ran back to the HVAC unit. She looped the strap around the spinning drive shaft of the fan. Carefully, terrified it would rip her arm off. She hooked the other end to the extension cord connected to Cole. The strap caught. The torque of the massive fan engaged. Screech! The cord went tight as a piano wire. The fan groaned, slowing down, but it was stronger than gravity. It began to wind the cord, pulling Cole up. Nash ran to the edge. The cage was jerking upward, foot by foot. The killer on the ladder reached the cage. He grabbed the mesh, aiming his gun through the bars at the helpless seal. "Hey!" Nash screamed. She stood on the edge of the roof, holding a heavy pipe wrench she'd found in the shed. The killer looked up. Nash threw the wrench. It wasn't a precision throw. It was a desperate heave. But gravity did the work. The heavy iron tool plummeted 20 feet and smashed into the killer's shoulder. He screamed, losing his grip on the wet ladder. He fell backward, tumbling into the darkness below. The cage hit the roofline. Nash grabbed Cole's collar and hauled him over the parapet, just as the extension cord snapped under the tension. They lay on the gravel, gasping, the rain washing the blood from Cole's face. "You," Cole whispered, "are insane." "I'm a nurse," Nash panted. "Same thing." She checked her watch. It had been 20 minutes since the call. "The beacon," Cole said, his voice fading. "Light it." Nash stood up. She dragged the oxygen tank she had carried all this way. She set it upright in the center of the roof, away from the vents. She took the road flares. She taped 3 of them together. She took the bottle of alcohol disinfectant. She poured it over a pile of oily rags she pulled from the shed. "Nash," a voice cut through the storm. She froze. The roof access door, the main stairwell door, banged open. Mr. Kincaid stepped out. He wasn't wet. He was wearing a raincoat, holding a suppressed pistol with a steady two-handed grip. He was flanked by 2 more men. "Enough," Kincaid said, his voice carrying over the wind. "It's over, Miss Jenkins. Impressive effort, truly. But physics wins in the end." He aimed the gun at Cole's head. "Give me the drive," Kincaid said. Nash stood between Kincaid and Cole. She held the lighter in one hand and the bundle of flares in the other. She was standing next to the oxygen tank. "If you shoot," Nash shouted, "I drop this lighter." Kincaid smiled. "So? A little fire? We'll put it out." "It's not just fire," Nash lied, her voice projecting with the authority she used on unruly drunks in the ER. "I cracked the valve on this oxygen tank, and I soaked these rags in pure ethanol. If I light this, it won't just burn, it will explode. It will take this whole section of the roof off, and you along with it." It was a bluff. Oxygen supports combustion. It doesn't explode like C4. But Kincaid was a suit, an intelligence officer, not a chemist. He hesitated. The muzzle dipped slightly. "You're bluffing," Kincaid said. "Try me," Nash said. She flicked the lighter. The flame danced in the wind. Precarious. "I'm a 42-year-old childless widow with a dead-end job. You think I have anything to lose?" For the first time, Kincaid looked unsettled. He saw the look in her eyes. It wasn't fear. It was exhaustion and rage. "Okay," Kincaid said, lowering the gun slightly. "Let's make a deal. You give me the drive, and I walk away. I leave you 2 here. The ambulance comes. You live." "He's lying," Cole whispered from the ground. "He can't leave witnesses." Nash knew it too. She looked at the sky. She heard it. A faint thwop, thwop, thwop under the thunder. They were close, but they couldn't see the roof in this downpour. They needed the light. "I'm not making a deal," Nash said. She didn't drop the lighter. She didn't light the rags. She did something Kincaid didn't expect. She grabbed the oxygen tank, aimed the nozzle at the flares in her hand, and cranked the valve open. Then she struck the flare. The stream of pure oxygen hit the magnesium flare. It didn't just light. It erupted. A blinding, supernova-white pillar of fire shot 30 feet into the air. The heat was instantaneous and searing. The brilliance turned the night into day, blinding Kincaid and his men. They shielded their eyes, stumbling back, their night vision totally destroyed. "Drop it!" Kincaid screamed, firing blindly. A bullet grazed Nash's arm. She cried out but held the flare high, like a torch of liberty. She waved it in a wide arc. Thwop, 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 roar! The sound of the rotor blades became a physical pressure. The wind from the wash knocked Kincaid's men to their knees. From the black clouds above, a shape materialized. Massive, black, a ghost ship. A MH-60 Black Hawk helicopter hovered directly over the roof, its downdraft kicking up a storm of gravel. Kincaid raised his gun to fire at the chopper. Brrrt! The minigun mounted on the side of the Black Hawk roared for a split second. A line of tracers chewed up the concrete inches from Kincaid's feet. Kincaid dropped his gun and raised his hands. Ropes dropped from the helicopter. 4 figures in full tactical gear slid down, fast roping onto the roof. They moved with a speed and violence that made Kincaid's thugs look like amateurs. 2 of them secured Kincaid and his men, zip-tying them before they could blink. The other 2 ran to Nash and Cole. One of the soldiers, a giant of a man, knelt beside Cole. He checked his neck. "Orion 7. Actual secured," the soldier said into his headset. "He's alive." "Barely." The soldier looked up at Nash. He saw the flare still sputtering in her hand, the blood on her arm, the defiance in her posture. He stood up and extended a hand. "Mom," he shouted over the rotor wash. "I'm Captain Miller. We'll take it from here." Nash dropped the flare. Her knees finally gave out. Captain Miller caught her before she hit the ground. "You did good, Nash," Cole whispered as they loaded him into the basket stretcher. "You did. Real good." Nash watched as they hoisted him up. She watched as the soldiers dragged Kincaid away. She sat on the wet gravel, the adrenaline leaving her body, leaving her shaking and cold. It was over. Or so she thought. The sun rose over Providence like a bruised eye, purple and swollen behind the clouds. The rain had stopped, but the hospital was in chaos. Nash Jenkins sat in the office of the hospital administrator, Mr. Henderson. She was wrapped in a foil emergency blanket, her scrubs stiff with dried blood and soot. She hadn't slept in 24 hours. Across the desk sat Dr. Owen, looking smug, and 2 hospital lawyers who looked like sharks sensing blood in the water. "Let me get this straight, Miss Jenkins," the lead lawyer, a woman named Ms. Vane, said, tapping a pen on her legal pad. "You destroyed a $3 million CT scanner. You blinded a federal agent, allegedly, with cleaning chemicals. You destroyed a security door. You hijacked a construction elevator. And you caused structural damage to the roof HVAC system." "I saved a patient," Nash said, her voice raspy. "A patient who was removed from the premises by military helicopter without any discharge paperwork," Owen interjected. "We have no record he was even here, other than the destruction you left behind. For all we know, you suffered a psychotic break." Nash looked at them. There were men with guns. They were going to kill him. "We have reviewed the security footage," Ms. Vane said. "Strange. The cameras in the east wing and the roof were looped. They show nothing but an empty hallway for 3 hours. No gunman, no helicopter." Nash felt a cold pit open in her stomach. The cleanup. Rourke had said, "Trust no one." The military, or whoever Cole worked for, had scrubbed the evidence. They had erased Kincaid, the bodies, the Black Hawk, and they had erased Nash's defense. "You are suspended effective immediately, pending a police investigation," Henderson said, sliding a letter across the desk. "We are also filing a civil suit for the damages. You're looking at bankruptcy, Nash, and prison." Nash took the letter. She didn't cry. She was too tired to cry. She stood up, the foil blanket crinkling. "Dr. Owen," she said, looking the arrogant doctor in the eye. "You wanted to scan him. You were going to kill everyone in that room. I might be broke. I might go to jail. But I can sleep at night." "Can you?" She walked out of the hospital, into the cold morning air. She walked to her beat-up Toyota Camry, sat in the driver's seat, and finally, she wept. The next 3 weeks were a nightmare. Nash was under house arrest, her nursing license suspended. The local news painted her as the rogue nurse. They dug into her past, mentioning her brother's death, framing it as unresolved trauma that led to a mental breakdown. She heard nothing from the man she saved. No phone call. No, thank you. The number in her brother's notebook, the one for Rourke, was disconnected. She was alone. The bills piled up. The court date loomed. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, a knock came at her door. Nash opened it to find 2 men in suits. Not the cheap suits Kincaid had worn. These were tailored, expensive, charcoal wool. "Ms. Jenkins?" the taller one asked. "If you're serving me papers, just leave them on the mat," Nash said, moving to close the door. A hand stopped the door. Gentle, but firm. "We aren't lawyers, ma'am," the man said. He pulled a badge from his pocket. It wasn't FBI. It wasn't police. It was a silver eagle on a blue background. Department of the Navy. "We are here to transport you," he said. "To where?" "Prison. To Washington," he said. "The Admiral is waiting." The flight was on a private Gulfstream jet. Nash sat in a leather seat, drinking sparkling water, watching the clouds roll by. She felt like an imposter in her TJ Maxx blouse and slacks. They landed at Andrews Air Force Base. A black SUV with tinted windows whisked her through the gates of the Pentagon. Not the tour entrance, the basement entrance. The one with the retinal scanners and the Marines standing guard with rifles that looked very real. She was led into a briefing room. It was mahogany and brass, smelling of history and power. At the head of the table sat a man with 4 stars on his shoulder. Admiral Vance. And standing next to him, leaning on a cane, wearing a dress blue uniform that fit him perfectly, was a man she barely recognized. His face was still healing, the bruising fading to yellow, but those blue eyes were unmistakable. "Cole," Nash whispered. "It's Lieutenant Commander Cole Harris," the Admiral corrected gently. "But yes, Cole." Cole limped forward. He didn't offer a handshake. He pulled Nash into a hug that squeezed the breath out of her. I thought you forgot," Nash stammered into his shoulder. "We had to go dark," Cole said, pulling back. "To catch the rest of Kincaid's network. We had to let them think they won for a few weeks. I am so sorry you had to go through that hell alone." "Ms. Jenkins," Admiral Vance said, "the drive you recovered, it contained the identities of 42 deep cover agents operating in hostile territory. If Kincaid had sold that, they would all be dead. Their families would be dead." He walked over to a velvet box on the table. "You are a civilian," the Admiral said, "so I cannot give you the Medal of Honor. I cannot give you the Navy Cross. But the President has authorized a special commendation." He opened the box. Inside lay the Department of Defense Medal for Distinguished Public Service. It was the highest award a civilian could receive. "But medals are just metal," Cole said. "And I know you have other problems." He slid a thick manila envelope across the table. Nash opened it. Inside was a letter from the Providence Medical Center Board of Directors. "Dear Ms. Jenkins, we are pleased to inform you that the internal investigation has been closed. Dr. Owen has resigned to pursue opportunities elsewhere. Your suspension is lifted, with full back pay. Furthermore, the hospital has received an anonymous endowment of $5 million to upgrade the radiology department and the trauma center. The new wing will be named the Mark Jenkins Memorial Trauma Center." Nash covered her mouth, tears spilling over. "My brother?" "We looked into your file," Cole said softly. "Your brother was a good Marine. He deserved better than he got. Now, his name will save lives every day." Nash looked at the paper, then at Cole. "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll come back to work," Cole said, "because I have a lot of buddies who end up in that ER, and I want to know the angel of the roof is watching over them." Nash wiped her eyes and stood up straighter. "I start my shift on Monday." Cole smiled. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old bronze coin, the one with the skull. Mors ab alto. "I think you earned this," he said, pressing it into her hand. "Welcome to the team, Nash." As Nash walked out of the Pentagon that day, into the bright sunlight of D.C., she didn't feel slow. She didn't feel invisible. She felt the weight of the coin in her pocket. She felt the ghost of her brother smiling. And she knew that the next time the doors of the ER burst open, she would be ready. Because she wasn't just a nurse. She was the line between death and the dark, and God help anyone who tried to cross it. We often think of heroes as the ones kicking down doors or flying jets. But sometimes the greatest courage is found in the quiet moments, in a refusal to look away, in a hand held in the dark, and in a nurse who stood her ground when the world told her to move. Nash Jenkins proved that you don't need a weapon to fight a war. You just need to know what's worth saving. If this story moved you, please take a second to hit that like button. It helps get these stories to more people. And if you believe that nurses and first responders are the unsung heroes of our world, subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who needs a reminder of how powerful one person can be. Thanks for watching.